So what I'm going to try and do over the next 15-20 minutes is take you through the SwiftKanban product itself and kind of try and show you what are some of the things that so clearly some of my resolution is going off because of the projector here. Life for Kanban project essentially revolves around this project board. The project board is the single place where the team collaborates, where the team comes together, where the team huddles and does a stand-up call. And as you can see, it gives a lot of information in one shot. It gives you a feel about who's doing what kind of work is happening in which lane. It gives you a feel about where work is getting bottlenecked. For example, by the way, this is my actual product SwiftKanban development board. So it's a live board. It gives you a feel for where work is getting bottlenecked. For example, you can see it at this point of time, validation stage is where it's getting bottlenecked. It gives you a full value stream, right? So for example, you can see that I go from, let me try and zoom it so that you can see it better. I go from ready for development to design to coding to test automation and then to the reviews and then finally validation to ready for deployment. So it gives me the value stream, it gives me who's doing what, it gives me where work is getting piled up, it helps me understand which are the resources who need help. If somebody needs help, he can actually just go ahead and block a card like this to say that, okay, I have a problem here and I need somebody to step in and help me out, right? So the other cool thing about the board is that just by looking at the board itself, you get a very clear picture about the kind of work that you are doing. So one of the things that you do is you can go ahead and classify the different kind of work and use a color-coded mechanism to be able to say what's a user story, what's a defect, what's a task, and so on and so forth. And so in our example, yellow is indicative of a user story, red is indicative of internal defects, blue is indicative of a customer defect. And so just by looking again at a glance, I have an excellent view about whether the bulk of my team is doing value-added work or the bulk of my team is doing rework. So you get a one-shot distribution about where your team effort is going at any point of time. As you can see, every lane has this number called 3 by 5, which essentially means that the lane has a WIP limit of 5. And at this point of time, there are 3 cards that are on it. And if I just were to hypothetically drag drop a couple of cards here, then very clearly the WIP limit that I have for my entire development lane, it goes for a toss. So as David was saying, it immediately helps the team to understand something has gone wrong, and then for the team to huddle together in the next stand-up call and say, okay, what went wrong, and how can I, as this say, stop starting and start finishing. So it focuses the team to make sure that what we have taken on the plate, let's push that workflow through and not just keep piling on stuff on your lanes. One of the other things that people might be wondering is that Kanban systems do encourage a pull-based work model. Essentially, the principle behind the fact that nobody sitting from the top is pushing down work, on the developer's plate. And the way you do it is you implement a buffer lane here. This is the buffer lane here, a done lane, right? Or a dev complete lane. This is the buffer lane. What the buffer lane lets you do is it helps a person to say that, okay, I'm done with my job, and so you put it to the dev complete lane, and then the testing guy can pick it up when he's done with his card and he's willing to pick up the next card. So, and at that point of time, he can then pick up what what and which card he wants to pick up. Some of the questions that have often been asked is, that today where we are not ready for a pull-based working model. And my common answer to that often is that it's not something that you have to mandatorily do. SwiftKanban by itself allows you to actually implement a push or a pull-based work model, so you don't need to have a buffer lane within itself. But it is some of the things which, if you do over a period of time, you will definitely get significant productivity enhancements in that way. The team member's commitment to the job is significantly higher when he picks the job himself rather than somebody tells and assigns it to him or her. One of the other things is a concept of what we call as swim lanes. And swim lanes essentially lets you define the value stream for different kinds of work on the same project board. So in our case, our requirement process is a very different value stream. As you can see, product management guys, they would first go ahead and identify the user stories that they will give it to us for estimation. And then from estimation, once you have estimated, it goes to prioritization, spec development, and finally it gets ready as spec and estimator is ready to go. So it helps you to kind of have different value streams for the different kind of work that you are doing. Swim lanes, you could take an approach that I would like to have swim lanes, a different value stream for my user stories, and a different value stream for my internal defects, and a different value stream for my customer defects. You could take an approach that I would like to have a different value stream based on my classes of service. For example, if I have an expedite ticket which does have a high cost, if it doesn't get delivered on time, I would like to have a separate value stream along with it. So the concept of swim lanes enables teams to go ahead and map multiple value streams within the same project board, and as you can see, we have 4 value streams at any point of time within our current project. The product is touchscreen enabled. What we have done is we have customers who have actually gone ahead and put this larger board view on a touchscreen where the whole team can huddle together and they can actually in the stand-up call go and move a card from a particular lane to another lane. So that becomes the kind of the basis to be able to see the whole project board at the same time. It is today available on your tablets and mobile, so that you can carry it along wherever you are. In that sense, it is kind of a living, working platform for you. It's of course extremely configurable, right? So you can go ahead and define and change all the processes the way you want to do. You can go ahead and define your own card types the way you want to do. So you can go ahead and say that which are the card types that I would like to go ahead and bring it into my product. So you can give its own color coding and give its own WIP limits, things like that. So let me not go there. Let me make it a little faster for the sake of time. One of the other, So one of the other things that, I have time till 5:30, right? Yeah, okay. So one of the other key important things is that, as Mahesh was saying, the work gets done in different platforms, right? You could have a Jira, you could have an HPQC, the work gets done in different platforms. And therefore, the last thing that you want to do is to have a situation where work is getting done in Jira and then people being manually creating tickets here. So we have ready adapters today with different products. We have a fairly mature web service framework so that you can integrate it with any other in-house product that you might be using. In essence, people can work on that and let the board become the platform for collaboration. That is the essential pitch that we are trying to create. So you could go ahead and pull up a card, put all the details, go ahead and define what you need to do. In the view, you can go ahead and define your comments, and these are all threaded comments. And you can actually define a to-dos and checklist so that people can actually say what all they want to do, what is their estimate, they can file time on it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, there's a nice notification framework, but since Raghu has already threatened me, let me move to something a little more exciting. So all that I was talking about for the last 10 minutes was around execution. How do you work? How would you work today? What is the board looking like today, and how the team collaborates today on the Kanban board? What we are really excited to show to you, and this is a development piece, so it comes with some caveats, standard caveats, but essentially what we are trying to do here is solve a problem, which is that when a developer says that I will take 3 months to do a job, right? What is he trying to say? He's trying to say that he's fairly confident that he will be able to do a job in, let's say, 3 months, and that would mean that he would perhaps, he in his own assessment is 80% confident that he can do it in 3 months. If you ask him that, okay, what's your 95% confidence level, he'll perhaps say 4 months. And if you say, if I really need to do it in 2 months, what's the chance that will happen in 2 months, he'll say 25%, right? So when a person gives you an estimate, there is a probability factor that is assumed in that estimate, right? It is never a totally deterministic estimate. The word estimate by itself, I guess, means that. So what we have done here is we have actually, what you're seeing, if you're able to see, you might not be able to see this. Let me increase the size here. So this is the very similar board which you saw that my development team uses, right? It's got the same value stream that that we actually use in our board. And just for the sake of at this point of time, we have assumed we have created three development profiles, and I have assumed that there is only one person, there is only one developer, there is only one designer, there is only one tester, and you can on the board assign that a designer that my design lane is a working lane. It's not a buffer lane. It has a certain WIP limit. You can say that its range of effort to do a typical design is, let's say, between 1 hour to 10 hours, whatever is the unit. But you're kind of giving a range because you know that in reality it will never be just one number, right? And of course you will. It lets you say that which is the primary resource profile that can do this job on this particular lane. So there is a kind of a stage to resource profile mapping that you're able to do. You are able to define your resources, and you can even define WIP limits for your resource, saying that one person can do only one card. And the other thing that it helps us to do is you can create cards of different types. Just like in our case, we have a user story, we have a custom defects, issues, and tasks. I can create work of different types, and instead of just being a hypothetical run, if I want to know today that for my backlog that I have today, which is, let's say, 30 cards, 5 defects, 5 issues, and 2 CRs, for the backlog that I have today, what is my completion time going to be? So you can go ahead and say that this is the profile of my card mix that I have in my Kanban board today. So if this is the profile, what the simulation lets you do is it actually tells you, and you can see the CFD plotting up to show that it will take 957 time units, and as you can see, the ready for development comes down, the ready for deployment, which is the orange number, it goes up, and I guess the coding plus units, which is where the bulk of the bottleneck is, correct? So it gives you a very clear picture that, okay, if this is the profile of my team, both in terms of what they're capable of doing and the number of people that I have in my team, then where is my process getting bottlenecked, right? And this is what typically all of us in the industry call as what ifs, right? Doing scenarios to see what is the combination that would work the best given the randomness of real life that we are all facing today. So what I'm going to do is by the way, so you can actually just go to another step and say, okay, instead of just running it for doing one run, just give me a run for 20 iterations. So the system will quickly compute and say, okay, if I were to do this run 20 times, then my average is 982 time units for completing it, and it will vary between 889 and 1067, and it gives me a certain level of utilization for developer, designer, tester for all the three profiles that I have, right? So now that you know that, okay, this is my problem that I have, you are now willing to, you can now go to the developer lane and say, okay, let me increase this developer from 1 to, let's say, 5. Okay, and I go ahead and save it, and I will go ahead and increase the designer from, let's say, 1 to 3, and increase the tester from 1 to, let's say, 3, and I save it, and I say, okay, give me another run. Sorry, I missed saving it. Between the projection resolution and the screen resolution, the UI is screen. So I will go ahead and go to my resource and say, my developer, please increase it to 5. My designer, please increase it to 2. Developer, please increase it to 5 and save it, and tester, increase it to 3 and save it. And now when I go ahead and do the same run, I get a very different picture, right? So what was at that point of time taking 900 plus time units, it comes down to 215 time units. And as you can see, the cumulative flow diagram has become a lot more gradual. You can see that work is still getting piled up in the coding lane, as you can see it there. The work is still getting piled up there, but at least its height has reduced, so you know it's a lot better uniform distribution, right? And that perhaps is the big bottleneck that you see even at this point of time, right? So you can do these kind of scenarios, and something more cool, you can actually go to the board and say that, you know, from my testing lane, from my validation lane, I actually, there is a 10% probability that when I am testing my enhancements, I will get a defect, right? So you are not only going ahead based on the fixed backlog that you had at a point of time, but you know that in reality, when I am going to do this project run, I'm going to get defects introduced in the system as my cards keep getting tested, right? And obviously now the cycle time, because it has the completion time, because now there is a certain level of defects that is being modeled into the board, it goes up from 215, I think it was last time, to roughly about 240 units. And as you can see, there is a red card that has been added there as things were getting tested. And obviously it's a simulation, so it's not necessarily the 10% probability means it's always going to be 10%. It's a range that you're giving. But you get the message what you're trying to do. We're trying to build what ifs in terms of that if this is my cycle time that I'm experiencing, this is the range of effort that work takes to get done in a particular lane. This is my team member profile, both in terms of numbers and their skill sets, and this team member can act on this lane. Then you can do a lot of these kind of what ifs to say what is the most optimal load or my team profile that I need to have to be able to make the best cycle time reduction. As you can see very clearly, the ready for deployment kept on increasing because as defects kept on getting added, obviously the backlog size increased. I'm done. Okay, so I think that's what we wanted to show. We are obviously very excited to bring not just the Kanban board, but the Kanban board in conjunction with the simulation model, because I think the simulation model for the first time helps you predict what the future is going to be, right? We have all done our MPP planning and we have done an estimated day of completion and computed those kind of numbers, but those are very deterministic models, and you know fundamentally that work is never that deterministic, right? There are so many randomness events that will happen that you just cannot predict on day one. So without further ado, I will end my product demonstration here. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Puri.